Peace and blessings, and welcome back to the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Transparent Credit Repair, the superheroes of the financial literacy world. If you like to get some help with your credit, boost your credit score, or even get your pockets some room to intake new money, not just a stimulus check, why don't you call 862-250-5122 or visit www.transparentcreditrepair.com. On this episode of the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast, we talk about deep things such as changing the narrative and controlling the media. And one artist, the artist that we have on this podcast that talks about such things is Soul Rac, an MC from Orlando, Florida, whose new single Blackface is just as provocative as it sounds. Blackface was used in American media as a way of Caucasian demographics in society to make fun of people of color, or they consider Negroes and other disparaging words. People put on black paint and did comedy renditions of the people they wanted to make fun of. Mr. Bojangles type things. Step and fetch it, you know what I'm saying? Even to the point where we are reminded of blackface in today's society with the disappearing of men of color, black men, as father figures or positive role models when the strong black male figure is gone in just about every form of media. The sad thing is, ladies and gentlemen that's listening to this, is whether you believe it or not, blackface is predominant in our society. And no matter how the so-called norms change or the culture changes, the fake inclusion conversation goes on, blackface still exists and people of color are still being portrayed in a disgusting manner, with people wearing Halloween paint or the caricatures of people being killed in society with comedy, the Mike Brown song, all these things. And the artist that we have on this podcast talks about such things, and we want to get you to understand where he comes from and appreciate his message and his music. So please stay tuned to this podcast, and after the interview, I'll come back with some commentary.
Peace and blessings, everybody. This is Karel from Heritage Hip Hop, and if you don't know about Heritage Hip Hop, not only are you slow, you're missing out on some of the best musicians and people in the game. And I got my brother from down south in Orlando, Florida with me. Introduce yourself to the people, fam.
Yo, this is Soul Rac, and just want to let you know I appreciate my man DJ Karel for putting it down and doing it with Heritage Hip Hop, because they're doing it for the culture, and they all about the culture. So we're just glad to be here today to talk about my new single called Blackface.
Before we get into the single, tell us about your name, because Soul Rac indicates that you're not somebody who's just rapping and had a name. You're somebody who has a name with a purpose.
Exactly. Well, Soul Rac basically is my first name backwards with an extra O, because my first name is Carlos. So if you spell it backwards, it come out with Soul Rac. You add the extra O, then it spells soul, because my music, basically I define it as music for the soul, or soul conscious hip hop, because it's for the people and by the people.
You know what's funny? Hip-hop was made out of pain, and it was made by people who were faceless and voiceless, who carried the burden of society. Today, I feel that people of color are starting to find their worth, but still doesn't have an identity. Do you agree?
I agree. That's one of the reasons that I was motivated to do this EP, Soulploitation, because I feel like we need to deal to regain our identity and recognize our self-worth.
You know what's funny though? A lot of us don't even recognize our own self-worth, because we follow the trend of being the step and fetch it, the coon, or the joke, instead of being the proprietor, the businessman, and the architect of society. How does your music help heal that pain?
Well, I do it on two fronts. One of the fronts I do it on my social media page, which is at Soul Rac Music. I educate Black history. It's funny that you use the word cool, because one of the things that I was teaching at one time was about the stereotypes that occurred during Jim Crow history, And so I do that on a weekly basis, and now I'm talking about the Harlem Renaissance. But basically, I educate people about the culture and make them recognize that we made a major contribution not only in America but abroad. In addition to that, my music is dealing with issues that are affecting us as a community. Blackface is dealing with a social issue that's been going on for over 200 years, and then I got another song dealing with mass incarceration. So the music itself, it uplifts the people, but it also educates at the same time. And that's how we kind of drive people towards recognizing who they are by letting them know they have value and seeing that value in the music.
Isn't it funny how they try to devalue us but want to be us so bad?
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Have you seen all the things going on in the hip hop world where everything seems to be about the destruction of the community from what they say we do on the inside, but it's perpetrators on the outside that influence the destruction that we are partaking in?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the record companies are mostly owned by non-black people, and then the radio stations as well. So they benefit from us moving and degrading one another and devaluing ourselves. We just happen to be the recipients of it because it's a systematic system that's been going on since the first time we got here, from the first slave ship at the land, 1619. So we've been struggling for a while to overcome these stereotypical ideas and ideology. And that's why it's more important now, we as artists and we as artists in music or art or any art form address these things to bring about what we talked about earlier, to help us recognize we have an identity and we don't have to succumb to these ideologies that are out there today.
I agree, because that's called controlling the narrative. And
exactly.
See, you give yourself off as a socially conscious person that doesn't just rap, but you know what the hell you're rapping for and what you're rapping about.
Mm-hmm.
And watching the Byron Allen case, he was stated on an interview how a person outside of the culture, the race, or whatever you want to call ethnic group, said that why is it important for people of color to own the narrative? And he said, if I made music about your daughter and talked about her in a way that you didn't like, would you accept it? He said no. And Byron Allen said, why should I accept it as well? And that type of sentiment has been going around the world, because if you see recently in the news, the people from China are treating the Africans or so-called blacks very badly, and they threw blackface, which is something you talk about. They threw blackface in their opera, blackface on their television, in their cartoons. They have black monsters with big red lips. And even when Kobe Bryant died, they did news reports saying, I hope that nigga's really dead because now my sneakers will be worth more money. When you see the legacy of blackface continue, what is the responsibility of an artist to fight against blackface and to show that not only are we not that character, but we are the essence of the life that you make fun of, but you copy?
I think one of the things we have to do, as with anything, you have to bring awareness to it and call it out. Let's use Gucci, for example. They put out the sweater which resembled blackface, and due to the outrage and us not letting up, meaning that we kept going after them day after day, that motivated them to not only take the sweater down, but now they hired a hip-hop icon, Dapper Dan, to work with them just to kind of point them in the right way. Now, we have to always be careful when those things happen, because sometimes people do it just to use people as a token, but we can look at it from a positive as well as a negative perspective. So I think by bringing awareness to it and through music, by bringing awareness to it online, and constantly bringing these issues out is a way that we can address it. Now, let's be honest, something like this is not something that'll happen overnight, because seeds been planted for centuries, so it takes time to break it down. But bringing recognition, working cohesively as a group of people, and constantly letting people know that this is not acceptable is one of the ways we can move in the right direction.
I agree, because moving in the right direction seems to be what's been the problem for so many centuries. But you're right, people have planted seeds, and it's up for us to actually grow them. They say man plants the seeds and God gets the increase. You know what I'm saying? So tell me about one of the seeds you planted in Enlightenment music.
Well, one of the seeds I planted, we're doing it right now with Blackface, because we planted that seed because people weren't really talking about it. A lot of artists wouldn't even touch on it, and we're pretty much addressing it. It's been touched on before. I won't say I'm the first one doing it, but currently I'm the one doing it. So I'll take the credit where it belongs. but we have to do it more global. I think one of the biggest challenges for indie artists is not getting support from the bigger people who have the bigger platforms that can bring these type of subjects to a higher level, because we have to grind it out, which is nothing wrong with working for what you want. But there are people who are in positions of power that can help us get a bigger audience and get it to the masses much faster and in a less expensive way, so that way we can be effective. So we can plant the seeds, but we need fertilization to come from other people, so that way we can really get the message out there on a larger scale.
True. So now I want to ask you a question in theory, because it goes to music. A reason why our people don't have a lot is because we don't have resources. And now you being independent, you're becoming a pipeline resource. Like I said, once again, you have Enlightenment Music Group, right?
Yeah, yes.
And we're going to go into the name in a minute. But when you have that as a resource, a lot of us want others to put in what we need ourselves to put in first. J. Edgar Hoover famously said the number one threat to America is black unity.
It is.
And if we unify behind the music, what do you think would change? How would your music be effective within that change?
Well, I can speak from two perspectives. One is what I can do as a label and as an artist. What I can do as an artist is create a platform for other artists to get exposure and to reach out to them with the resources that I have. My objective behind doing the Enlightenment Music Group was to create a platform for artists who don't have the resources that I may have, or who don't have the platform that I have. So that was the gist, or that was the idea behind even doing an independent label, is to create opportunities for others who have less resources than I do. Of course, I'm trying to build my resources at the same time. With that being said, it's needful that we do create that black unity. It's needful that we create the unity. When I mean unity, not unity in just resources, but unity in communication, where we can be on the same page, communicating what's going on, so that way it can be an echo effect online as well as on the radio and elsewhere.
I love how you put that, because communication is what the threat of hip hop is. But in today's society, it seems like the written pen is becoming the demon that has given up its power to the evils of society. Because you hear everybody say, well, I don't write my lyrics down. And we're not really fully understanding that pen, that stroke of the brush, the print, is not only what solidifies your lyrics in your song, but it makes you a staple in the landmark of history. So we have to be careful what we say and how we say it. What are you saying? Thank you. What are you saying when we say Enlightenment Music Group? What is the Enlightenment? And talk about the spelling, because it's not the grammar, dictionary grammar.
Well, that was spelled on purpose. Funny, a guy told me you spelled Enlightenment wrong. I say, well, it was done on purpose. It's basically, and it basically means to come in the light. You know, that's basically what it is. You coming into the light. And in fact, the logo is a light switch. It's an animated logo, but what it does, it's a light switch that's moving, and it shines on IMG, which is abbreviation for Enlightened Music Group. And basically, what we're doing, we want to bring people in the light through music. That's what Blackface is. It's bringing people into the light. It's bringing them into the light where they can see truth that they might haven't seen before, or probably haven't heard before. So that's why it's important for me when I do my music, is to speak truth, at least, and try to educate at the same time, which can be challenging, but ultimately we want to bring people into the light.
That's dope, because you know what? This reminds me of, in the 90s, we had Milestone Comics. You remember Milestone Comics? And you remember how the major comic books were shutting our voices out and giving us caricatures or blaxploitation type characters or representations where the man as a woman of the inner city was not being heard in comic book culture. In music, the independent music, not all the time, but in major ways, gave the common artist who was not given a chance to share his voice able to be heard. And we've seen the common, quote unquote, common artist change the game. How are you changing the game and bringing the voice that needs to be heard to the forefront?
I think one of the ways that I'm changing the game is the fact that I'm willing to do music that some people don't want to touch. That's the first thing. Number two is working towards creating unification amongst independent artists so we can have a bigger voice. Number three would be is just willing to be authentic with my music. I'm not trying to make music that's popular. I'm not trying to make music that's ultimately there to sell a lot of records. I'm trying to sell ideas and thought and create thought. So just my approach is a way of changing the game, and just the fact that I'm trying to use a different methodology than most. Well, I won't say most, but I'll say some artists are doing. And I feel that overall impact, it may not happen now. It may take a year, 2 years from now, but ultimately the end game will justify the means.
You mentioned other artists. You have an artist on your label that you work with. Tell me about him and how y'all work together to make these things and these messages come out and happen.
Well, now I have an artist. He's not on my label because right now I'm the only artist on my label. Because
okay.
I'm the premier artist. But I do have an artist who I do work with, and I work with an artist by the name of reggae artist Callie Rinks, which he's with Forthcoming Music. I'm the vice president for that label, and basically I work with them as far as putting his music out. But the thing that I've worked with Callie on is that we just work with as far as marketing, and he's been able to teach me things about the music business because he's been in the game for over 20 years, and he was on Def Jam at one time, and he made a song that was on the show soundtrack called Kill Them All. And so he's
That was my jam. That was my jam.
So he's an OG in the game, and just by being in his circle, and has helped me out quite a bit. And not only him, there have been others as well. Even my producer, Big Bob, who's from Canada, and he has been very influential on me. And many different other ones. Mike Hands, who's an OG in the game, who works with he's a Def Squad artist or member, and he's a boot camp affiliate as well. So just having those people in your circle helps you grow as an artist, and not only just artists you have, but daily people that you deal with who support and love the music and love you as a person is a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is. And shout out to let's say Big Bob, right?
Big Bob, yes.
Shout out to Big Bob up there in Canada. Hopefully we talk to him soon. So and Callie Rinks as well. But I have a question to ask you. Now, with conscious music, a lot of people fail in this regard. They have so much to say that the song gets torn down, or they have so much information that the hook doesn't keep you listening. How do you find your formula to make good music and to keep people interested and not get bored or overwhelmed by being above their heads?
I'll use one example. One of the ways is to keep people guessing. Don't continue to use the same formula per song. I mean, you have a basic formula you use as far as writing goes, but I'll use Blackface as an example. When I wrote Blackface, I knew you couldn't keep talking about the same thing over and over again. You had to make it interesting because when you deal with subject matters like what you're talking about, you have to keep people interested. So we came up with the idea of using newsreels as the hook, basically, just to get people to hear it and let that define what Blackface is. But the way I wrote the verses, the first verse was basically written for people who wear blackface and didn't recognize the negative nature of it. And so it's almost like written to non-black people so they can understand why we don't approve of blackface. Number two was written, I spit it faster, basically just to kind of give it that militant tone. And that's for more of my woke generation. And then when you get in the third verse, it's more broken down based on educating people about the origin of it and pointing the direction we need to go as we move forward with dealing with this issue.
That's strong. Now, by your accent, and like I said earlier in the interview, you're from the South.
Yes.
So the South is the heart of the struggle of brown-skinned people in this country for many centuries and generations. As the struggle has continued, we've migrated, and the temperature and temperament of the people have changed based on where they are. What is the hip-hop culture of Orlando, Tampa, Florida like, and what is it like to come out of it and represent that voice and that tone of the people?
Well, the beautiful thing about Orlando and Tampa is it's basically a melting pot, Orlando more so. And the reason I say that because it's a lot of influence, musical influence you have here. You have a lot of people that's from the East Coast or Midwest that moved down here. Some of them came as youth and they grew up here because their parents moved here, basically migrated back to the South. And then you also have so you have the East Coast musical influence. You also have the Southern music influence that come from being in the South, like you had the Luke Skywalker back in the days, the bass music, and then you also have, exactly. You also have the crunk, or you have the trap. So my music is a variation of, it's more infused by East Coast hip hop, but I also recognize my roots because I recognize where I come from. So when I do music, whether it be on my EP or it be on other artists, I'm gonna infuse all of that music. That way, people can get a taste of what Orlando, Tampa represent.
Yeah, East Coast is normally considered New York hip hop. But I remember Pimp C used to say Florida's East Coast rap. That's not the South, that's the East. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think a lot of people don't see, because even when I go elsewhere, people easily assume that Florida is not South because they think because we have so many people that live from other states here, and they don't feel that we're Southern. But we're just as Southern as any other place because I grew up eating the same soul food that they ate. We went through the same struggles that people in the South went through. The level of racism and some of the things that we dealt with as I dealt with as a youth, it didn't differ from Texas or Tennessee or anywhere else in the South. I just think that because we have Walt Disney World and we have so much tourism here and we have so many people coming from other places that we're somehow isolated from the same struggles they had, or we eat different food. I ate the same food they eat. There was nothing different as far as experiences except perception, basically. So that's really what the difference was, in my opinion.
Yeah, shout out to Disney World because they destroyed my trip. I went down there to do Star Wars Land, and I couldn't even make my own goddamn lightsaber. I was pissed off.
Yeah, I understand. I've been there too. I've been there. I worked for them before too, so I understand your pain.
Oh, you know the struggle from the inside and out. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that goes to show how deep, the mind is, because if you don't know the struggle inside and out, you really don't get to appreciate it. And with you being a fan of, you say, you like some of the East Coast. East Coast music was heavy, 5%er, and heavy black culture in the 90s. And also on the West Coast, you had like Paris, The Devil Made Me Do It. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Poor Righteous Teachers, Paris, you had KRS-One, Public Enemy, of course. Shout out to Chuck D, top 5 MCs on my list. And great. And then with your art, you're making sure that the voice of being a conscious, I hate to say conscious rapper because all rappers are conscious when they write. If they're not just stupid. But being a conscious or positive rapper, you're keeping the legacy of wanting to see the people do better.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the point.
Let's go into it. I mean, the point of your music is what?
Oh, that is the point. You just said it. I mean, I can only restate what you said. The point of it is so people can do better. It's about empowerment, enlightenment, empowerment, and education. Ultimately, when you educate and you enlighten people, you position them where they can do better. That's the end game. I'm hoping that through the music that it's therapeutic for people, that it can heal some of the wounds that they experience throughout life. I have a song that I'm doing called Runaway Queen. It's being produced right now by DJ King Assassin. And basically it's dealing with a lady who was abused through her youth, and she grew up being abused, and eventually she ended up breaking away from the abuse. But I'm hoping that people that went through abuse, when they hear that it will heal their heart and it will heal their mind, and that it will be therapeutic for them. So I want to hit people from all angles. I don't want to be one of those one-size-fit-all artists. I believe that people are different and their struggles are different. And I first deal with me first. I deal with myself and what my thoughts and my pains are, and I let that illuminate in my music. But as I'm writing my music, I consider those who may hear it and how it may impact them.
Word, see, and I hate to say this because it's going to sound probably ignorant to the people who don't understand me. But if you're listening, you might as well understand me now. But COVID and the Corona quarantine actually gave people a gift, and it was the gift. It was the gift to actually sit the hell down and listen. So now these versus battles are actually doing something because people are now listening to the music and they're listening to the words and they're listening to the lyrics and the beats, and they're actually finding what are the voices inside of the music that they've been missing because they were so busy and bobbing their heads up and down but not listening.
I agree.
So let's get them to hear something deep right now. Soulploitation. Okay. What is that? And actually, and define the title because it's so deep.
Well, it's soulploitation. It comes derived from the idea of blackploitation, but it's just my own, variation of it. And basically, it's just like me exposing my soul on wax or digitally to people, where they can hear and see the things that concern me, things that touch me, things that are a part of my life. There's a song I'm writing now as we speak called History, which kind of is like a story that I'm writing for my son, talking about fatherhood, growing up without a father and becoming a father, and how important it is to leave a legacy as a father. And so those things, they expose who I am. I'm basically just allowing myself to be vulnerable to the people, and that way they can hear and see what I'm doing.
Yeah, man. You know what's deep about that? Blaxploitations, even with the last Netflix movie that came out with Eddie Murphy and about Dolomite, the blaxploitation, as many people say, it was exploitation, but the blaxploitation culture actually gave voice to our comedic genius, and also gave voice to show that we have talents that the world takes for granted. So I salute you on your project. You definitely have a supporter in heritage hip hop, and we will be giving you homage and respect with it. The one thing I can say I love about the video is you have actual footage of the people who are in the movement. I'm a teacher by trade, and I've actually talked to children that's in elementary school, and they don't even know who Martin Luther King Jr. is.
Nope.
They just know he has a holiday. They don't know who Malcolm X is. They just know people talk about him. And with people like Dr. Claude Anderson, with people like Chuck D, KRS-One, Wise Intelligent, we're not talking about our heroes, our champions. Oh, I'm sorry, Angela Rye. We should talk about her too. We should put some women in there. Sister Soldier, pardon me.
Yes, that's right.
We have people who've continued the movement, and they're not only rappers. They're people in politics. They're people in our homes and our communities. And I want to salute you and them in saying that as long as you keep your voice able to be heard, there will be voices to listen. So I salute you. Thank you very much.
No problem. And I just want to give a shout out to my man Magic Mike for creating the video up in Canada as well. And he definitely put together a well-crafted video, and I felt it was heart-touching and powerful. So I want to make sure I give him credit because it doesn't all go to me. I want to give it to him and all the people that contribute to this video coming out and being seen.
Word. So before we close out this interview, give everybody your social media, and then we're going to have a little bit of fun.
All right, no problem. Basically, if you want to follow me, just go on Twitter, Instagram, just do @Soul Rac Music. You can go to YouTube and look for me at Soul Rac Music, and you'll be able to find the music. You'll be able to find the movement, and just asking everybody to erase blackface in 2020 and just support the music. One love.
True, and everybody out there, you do not only have to go to YouTube. The video is available on heritagehiphop.com. So go to our website and stop being funny.
All right, that's it.
And not only that, everybody who listens to Heritage Hip Hop or watches Heritage Hip Hop knows we are not a streaming community. Streaming is okay, but purchasing is better. And if you believe in the artist, please take $1 out or however much the singles or albums are, and please, these are independent artists, spend your coins, because that's how we get more music and better things to come as if we invest in our own and support the art. Please.
I agree with you.
Thank you very much. So before we close out, it's time to do the rapid fire questions. Are you ready for the rapid fire questions?
Oh, yes. Let's do it.
Okay, just to preface you, rapid fire questions are not yes/no questions, and I don't ask questions like who's sexy and what's your favorite food, because I really don't care.
Good.
I like to ask questions. I like to ask questions based on you, your intelligence, and the culture that you represent. Are you ready?
Okay, let's do it.
Besides the music you've made, what is the perfect song that describes your life?
Oh man, I guess it would be. I would say. I would say the perfect song that describes my life, I want to say Bob Marley's Buffalo Soldier,
Okay.
because that describes my passion and my commitment to to go against the grain, basically. Yeah.
I respect that. Being that you're a person who talks about the people, the struggle, and the victory to come,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna make this a hard question for you. Who are your top three? Who are your top three activists and why? We always had top five MCs, right? You know, let's keep it five. Who's your top five activists that help groom you and to see the culture for what it is?
Wow. D-Ray is one. I like him.
Okay.
I like, man, let me see. Because can we consider rappers as well? Because
Sure.
I consider Chuck D as an activist because of what he does for the culture.
Okay.
Talib Kweli is another person that I see in that same light. Also, I like, Tanisha. I wouldn't say that he's necessarily an activist, but I guess in the way he is to me, he's like an advocate. I would say he is because of his writings.
Who's this?
His writings. Tanisha Coates.
Okay.
Yeah. I like his writings. I like what he does for the culture. I like even his speech that he gave about reparations. I think it was very informative, and I felt that it was realistic. And lastly, you may not know of him, but there is a preacher, and his name is Bishop. I can't think of it. It's Bishop. His name Bishop. It's not Swan. I think it's. Give me just a minute, real quick, because I know his name. He's on Twitter, but it's Bishop Swan, I believe it is.
The gentleman from Tennessee with the glasses.
No, he's not from Tennessee.
Okay. So I know one guy.
I said it right, Bishop Talbot Swan. I don't know why I couldn't say it first, but Bishop Talbot Swan.
Okay.
He's a pastor, but he's an advocate, and he comes after Trump every day on Twitter. And not only that, he educates people. I like anybody to go after him, so I'll just be honest with you. But he educates the people, and he also, speaks truth to power. So I like him a lot. I really follow him on Twitter, and I support what he does. So I have a weird assortment of people that I like. But at the end of the day, I don't let my activism or anyone activism deter me if they're speaking truth to power. So that's basically how it goes.
Okay, I got three more questions for you.
All right.
Being that you're a hip-hop artist, the remix is something that made hip-hop great. Because you could take a song and remake it, or people will remake their own song and add people on it. What is the greatest remix of all time?
In my opinion, it's Flavor in Your Ear, the remix.
Okay.
Because you had Craig Mack, you had Big E. I think that was the song. In my opinion, that's how I heard about Big E on that track. LL Cool J, Rampage, Busta Rhymes. You had a lot of legends in that on that single. So I think it's one of the best ones ever made.
Okay. And that's deep. So what song would you like to remix and add people on, if you could?
You mean that's out now?
It's your choice. It's your question. Answer it any way you feel fine with it.
I like to remix Children's Story with Slick Rick.
Okay.
So many people have done it, so it's what they didn't do, they did Lottie Dottie. But I would love to do Children's Story over again.
Okay. Now see, you talked about featuring. Now sometimes in hip hop, a feature can catapult an artist to the next level, where sometimes they overshine the person who originally did the song, right?
Yeah.
Who has the best guest 16 in hip hop history to you?
Nas. When he was on, I think it was
what song?
Nas. I think it was At the Barbecue, I believe that was the name of it. It was a song that he did a while back. I'm trying to remember the name of it. But he was on there with he was on there with my mind's slipping right now. I apologize to you about that. But it was a song with what's his name? I know it's not Grand Poobah. What is it? He's a producer right now. His name is he was with Main Source, the guy who was on there.
Oh, Extra P. Okay, but you don't know what the
Large Professor. Yeah,
yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah. That's the one that I would say. And I believe it was at the barbecue, if my memory serves me right.
Live at the Barbecue? That's the best guest 16 of all time?
Yep, live at the barbecue. That's it. That's what
Rap
I was looking for.
disciple, my rap is trifle, all pull slugs from my brain just like a rifle. That's you, right? Okay.
Yep, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
I slipped my mind, but I knew it was there. I just it was on the tip of my tongue. I just had to pull it up. But thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey man, we hip hoppers over here. We know what what it's really about. Now see, because you said that, now I got to ask you another question, man. See, you just fed the interview.
All right.
If you could collab, what would be your what collaboration would you like to do to make your perfect song? And since people always ask this, I'm gonna just tell you, dead or alive, it doesn't matter. What would be your favorite song? Any artist you work with, and who's producing it?
Wow. Well, if it was an artist, it would have to. You know who I would like to work with? I know it may sound a little bit different because it's not really a hip hop artist. Actually, I'd love to do a song with Damon Marley. Like how he and Nas did the Patient song. I would love to do a song like that. But I would like it to be produced by Marley Marl. I would love for Marley Marl to do it. Yeah, that'd be fire.
So look, we put it out in the universe. So let's feed that baby and let the universe get back to you and let's see what happens. You know what I'm saying?
I would love for that to happen.
So Damien Jr. Gong, let's make it happen. Marley Marl, let's make it happen. That means you got to share this interview to Marley Marl. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. That's what social media for, is to be social.
Exactly. I'll share it with them. That's on everything I love, for real. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so, I mean, this interview is not over if we have one more question, but once again, I want to thank you for coming on Heritage Hip Hop. And the last question of my interviews, I don't ask it every interview because if you come back, I can't ask you this no more. You know what I'm saying? But for every time I interview somebody, I ask them this question, and this is the most important question I ask in the entire interview.
Okay.
And you'll see why. In the world, especially today, we see that life is temporal. It's very temporary. And we're losing people to disease and conspiracies and murders and sicknesses and all the isms, sexism, racism, even murders and all that other stuff, right? We're losing people, and we realize that life is precious, and you got to hold on to today like there is no yesterday or tomorrow, that you got to live life and make it precious. And then when we lose the people, a lot of us have a hard time appreciating what we've had. One day you're not going to be on this planet. I'm not going to be on this planet. None of us who are here now are going to be physically here. But say in the year 3000, somebody finds this little weird thing called an MP3.
Okay.
And they go, what the hell is this? And they hook it up to a virtual reality screen, because there's no TVs anymore. And what they do is they see notes and they hear your music. The last question of this interview is, what is the legacy that you leave behind in the world? And how did you make the world better because you did music?
Oh, I like that one. Well, the legacy I want to leave behind is this EP that's being made right now as we speak, Soulploitation, and whatever music I make thereafter. But what I want to, as far as my legacy and what I did to make the world better, is speaking truth to power when it was uncomfortable, talking about subject matter that people were unwilling to talk about, because who knows? I mean, I pray that in 3000 that we no longer have to deal with the issue of blackface, that we no longer have to deal with mass incarceration. I'm hoping that will no longer be an issue at that point. But if it is, at least somebody can say, well, at least there was someone in 2020 that was talking about this issue and was addressing it even when it was unpopular. That's what legacy I would like to leave behind.
And that's what it is, everybody. It's not only about finding your voice, it's using your voice to make a difference and make a change in the world. The Most High had it written in the Bible. It says that he didn't make you to be a light to be hidden under a bush. He made you to hold your light on the mountaintop to be the search tower or light tower for those to see his glory and come to him through you. So Soul Rac, from the deepest appreciation of my heart and from Heritage Hip Hop, we thank you for this interview. We thank you for your music, and we thank you for your influence, bro.
Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you. And I would advise everybody, definitely follow Heritage Hip Hop, because they're doing it, and they're doing it for the people.
Word. So for everybody out there that's listening, we say peace, and we out.
Thank you once again for listening to this episode of the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast featuring Soul Rac. an MC from Orlando that represents Tampa, Florida as well, that has a message of consciousness and pride for his people and their representation. Thank you for listening. We honor you and thank you for taking the time out to listen to our interviews. But we have a message for you. Please stay safe out there during this COVID-19 world. Remember to wash your hands, social distance, quarantine, and take care of yourself, because without you, the world is empty and a darker place. Before we get up out of here, we would like everybody to support Soul Rac. His new single, Blackface, is on all streaming and music platforms now, but please, if you like the song, purchase it. Streaming is good, but purchasing is better because you invest in the artist. Not only that, if you would like to invest in heritage hip-hop, you can visit our website at www.heritagehiphop.com and look at our many resources when it comes to hip-hop. Whether we're looking at interviews, podcasts, comic book culture called Blurred Hop, you want representation as far as a social media presence, we have partners like Fatty's Place, FADDYSPLACE on Instagram that can help you with your social media as a media advocate. We have Firejaws, FIREJAWS, a prolific MC from New Jersey who does marketing, promotion, and placement. So if you want to see your art put in a certain place and used a certain way, you should hit up Firejaws and his Wildfire marketing team. We have Diamonds Entertainment LLC, DIEMENZ Entertainment LLC, which is about sports, recreation, dress, and that side of the hip-hop culture. We also have The Big A Show, another podcast that you'll be hearing soon, once again, that features me as a co-host. The Big A Show is led by Adiyar, and you can see the show on YouTube at AHDAYAR. We are also once again sponsored by Transparent Credit Repair, the credit heroes of the financial world. Make sure if you're looking to do something about your credit and to raise your score, you call 862-250-5122, and you can visit them online at www.transparentcreditrepair.com. But see, that's all good and all, but if you want to also wear some apparel from Heritage Hip Hop, because I want to close out with the look of looking good and being proud to represent your brand, we are at www.storefrontier.com/heritage hip hop. We have shirts, t-shirts, sweatshirts, things to support heritage hip hop are there and can meet your fashionista sense of quality. To everybody out there, we thank you for paying attention to us. We have new shows coming. Great interviews are coming, and we hope to give you the best of the best that you deserve as the hip-hop culture. So before we get out of here, may the Most High bless you. May you stay alive and safe. We say peace, and we out.